don't think I can actually, that's what I took Lisa.
Oh, so you're gonna sell.
I am, I have,
We got
I'm-
songs about you.
go ahead, Tom,
Yeah, yeah.
we're ready. I'm sorry, I have.
Check, check, check.
Right. Class. Right, I saw to order the regular board of education meeting on Thursday, April 24, 2025 at 6:32 P.M. from the boardroom of Oak Park and River Forest High School, and ask for a roll call, please.
Mr. Griffin, Dr. Maharaj, Mr. Arkin,
Here.
Mr. Williams Lee. Here. Dr. Livingston. Mr. Randall.
Here.
Mr. Paskey.
Here.
And Mr. Dr. Livingston, Mr. President is spoken, so I will move you guys.
Sorry, like this living guys.
Yeah. You guys just need to say here. Yeah. Okay. I move to enter closed session for the purpose of discussing the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district, for legal counsel for the district, and independent contractors with specific volunteers, including hearing testimony and complaint lodged against an employer or against legal counsel of the district to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation for a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the Local Government Communication Increased Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted held in accordance with this act. Collective negotiating matters between the district and its employees or their representatives of deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees, and litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for this finding shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting. And discussion of minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act, whether for purposes of approval of the minutes or semi-annual review of the minutes as mandated.
Second.
And roll call please.
Dr. Maharaj,
Yes.
Mr. Arkin,
Yes.
Mr. Williams Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Randall.
Yes.
Dr. Livingston,
Yes.
and Mr. Paskey.
Yes, let the minutes note a 7-0 vote, and we will move on.
Rest.
Yes.
Seriously.
We're lame ducks.
Welcome. Good evening. We are resuming open session and we will return to our agenda and we will begin with our introductory reports. Before I do so, just two quick things. For everyone, next week, there are two there's a meeting scheduled on the Monday at 6:00 p.m., which is going to be a board meeting, a community engagement meeting with the theme being board finance or finances at 6 p.m. here at the school. And then there will be a meeting on Thursday, May 1st to do board transition and the newly elected board will be sworn in. Did I miss anything?
Yes.
Okay. And welcome Isabel to the table, our student delegate. And we will now go to our introductory reports with student showcase kicking us off.
Okay, first up, our students from our site program, and I believe I'm introducing Andy and Newman to kick this one off, as she makes her way through the crowd and to the microphone.
Oh,
So it's gonna be a brief introduction because Mr. Davina, who I think is on Zoom, is actually gonna introduce the site program and what they're gonna talk about, but just for people who don't know, our site program is for students who are 18 to 22. We're working on post-secondary goals and outcomes, employment, daily living skills in a variety of ways, and they're gonna talk a little bit about what they do.
So. Do I need to introduce the teachers or what do you want?
No, sorry. Thanks, Ms. Nguyen. So my name's Brian Dubina. I am the vocational coordinator over at Site. I focus mainly on helping the students at Site gain skills so that when they graduate from our program, they can follow whatever vocational goals they have. And what vocation means to students is very different depending on what their long-term goals are. For some of our students at Site, they're looking for a full-time job with benefits, 40 hours a week. Other students might be looking for a part-time job, a few days a week, a few hours at a time. Some students are looking for maybe an hour or two a week, just one day a week. And some students don't even really need to get paid or want to get paid, but they're looking for purposeful volunteering in the community. Whatever the students' goals are, the real point is being part of the community. And being at OPRF, like this is my 4th year here, I remember my first year looking at the inclusion assembly and I was like blown away that there's a whole assembly dedicated towards inclusion. And that sense of belonging to community is the same thing we want our students to feel as they graduate and move out into the world. A lot of employment training programs involve some sort of hands-on experience where students will go out into the community and work. You know, as teachers, we do our student teaching. We will do it for multiple years. I did mine for 2 years. Doctors do a residency. Electricians have apprenticeships and become journeymen and go through that process until they finish that training period and get to the end goal of whatever their career is. For students at Site, our community-based work sites are that training program. Students go out into the community from their first year and they build up strengths and skills that will transition them successfully into whatever employment goal they have. Sometimes it's a good way to test out what isn't a good fit. I know plenty of teachers in my graduate program who said, this isn't for me, I'm going to do something different. And sometimes that's a great learning experience to get out into the community and try something out. Because it's easy to say, I want to do this sitting at a desk, but until you actually do the job, you don't really know what it's like. The best part about Site is that we are there as staff to support students through this process. And it's just a great opportunity to get out into the community and try things out through our work sites. First up, I wanted to introduce 4 students who are going to tell you about their experiences working out in the community. And I believe Val, if you're there in the background, you're going to be one of our first students. Hi, Val.
Hello, my name is Val Ramirez. This is my second year at site. When I started at site, I joined my class at the work site, Rushville Park Hospital. At the hospital, we work in 2 departments. The first department we work in is the environmental services. Here, we keep the hospital clean. As we get more comfortable, we start independently taking the lead throughout the hospital, tackling hallways, offices, labs, and the cafeteria. The other department we work is the food service. At the hospital, they have a huge industrial dishwasher that will fill this room. Working in the food service, we learn how to build our speed and accuracy as workers so that we can be successful in future jobs. Not only do we learn how to do the jobs, we also get better skills that are important to any other job, like teamwork, patience, endurance, communication, and problem solving. In fact, some of my classmates have been hired by the hospital. There has been 11 site students hired at the Rush because of the program. And most of them still work there and still have a lot of benefits. I was offered a job, but I turned it down because I have a lot of hard work in college. Besides volunteering at Rush, we give back to the community by volunteering at Feed My Starving Children and the economy shop. Regularly, 1 day in 2 weeks. Besides that, tomorrow we are volunteering to help raise money for Misericordia, which is a community of care for people with disabilities. I have learned the importance of volunteering and really enjoy giving back to the people in the community. I really like working, especially with animals. At home, I have a pet sitting business. Another one of my volunteer jobs that I gained through site is animal care league. Here I sign up for shifts and assist with cleaning dog bowls, doing laundry, and anything else that the shelter needs to function. Volunteer and care league outside the site hours, the teachers at site help me feel more comfortable with filling out the applications and practicing interview skills with them through our annual mock interviews. If I didn't have site, I probably wouldn't have been able to get into the Amber Care League. In just 2 years, I've made a lot of growth and become more confident in that work and hope to continue to grow as long as I'm at site.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Megan Kennedy. I'm one of our community integrated transition education teachers. Thank you for having us here tonight. As a site teacher, it's our goal as a team to be student and family centered, working to individualize everything we do. Come on over here, sir. Which includes how we find and match students with job sites. We make decisions based on student voice, including strengths, preferences, interests, and needs. All is part of the equation. We want students to have access to environments where they want to be and feel motivated to go to work each day. Will Schumacher is a student in my classroom with a strong ability to self-advocate for his personal interests and preferences. Over the years, Will has had a variety of experience in fields that he has a passion for, and he is here to tell you more about it. Take it away.
Hello, mom. Yeah. Hello. Hello, my name is Will. This is my last year at site. I am graduating in May. I love street sweepers, trucks, trains, and libraries. Through the site program, I have been able to work in lots of places that meet my interests. I currently work at Wellard. I currently work at Wellard School. I currently work at the Holmes and Lincoln School Libraries in Oak Park and the Wellard. I currently work at I currently work at Willard the School Library in River Forest and Holmes and Lincoln School Libraries in Oak Park. I help shelve books, help students check out books, and help the librarians with other jobs they need done. I also work at the Forest Park Public Works where I clean their office and get to be around street sweepers. I read stories, these and lead activities at Longfellow Elementary School in Oak Park and serve Thanksgiving lunch every year to veterans at Heinz VA Hospital. This is my last year at site and I have built up the skills to be able to continue to volunteer at the elementary school library, these independently after I finish site.
Thank you, Wells.
We're done. My name is Eddie. If this is my last year at the site program, I had a part-time job while at the site. I love working with children and originally volunteer at two local schools as well as Wonderworks Children's Museum. I train at the Oak Park Fire Department with the firefighters and help maintain the firehouse. I am also a paid job employee at Canadian Sports in Forest Park. Through my time at site, I have become more independent at all my jobs. I no longer need a job coach and have become more independent at all of my jobs. I learned strategies to help keep calm when I get frustrated. I have learned how to use my phone as a work tool so that I am better organized at work. I've learned how to communicate professionally with my coworkers and bosses. Because I have become so independent, next year I am attending Judson University to study more about early childhood education so I can work as a TA. Thank you.
No, man.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel Chair Emmons, and I'm a teacher at site. I actually went to OPRF back in the day, so I'm excited to be on the other side of things as part of the amazing crew over at site. Growing up in Oak Park, I recognize that we're very lucky to be in a community that is open and willing to partner with us in creating these diverse and interest-aligned opportunities for our students, and we're super thankful for that. And this year, for some of our students, we decided to utilize the resources we have here in the building in the makerspace to create thank you gifts for all of the community businesses that have welcomed us into their walls. So with the help of Karen Sullivan and Olivia Schreiner, we created a site-specific logo incorporating the OPRF crest with our name. And our first large-scale use of the logo is in the creation of these gift mugs. So we got some right here. So there's our site logo. And we have our guy, Antonio here, one of our awesome students. Do you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Pedro. I'm the youth and science and program.
And what are some of your jobs that you do at site?
Then that I studied at the program, studied the Lord and the clear, if you are, or,
What's one of the jobs that you do at site?
I started at the school, and look at that, and
So every Thursday, right, you come here to the high school from our,
at the school, the high school, and the climate, and the that the park, well, I said the whole care and car. You not take a foot, but you not walk.
so what do you help make for one of your jobs?
One of your job is
You help making what?
making car. You making that and car. You making house. Making. I'm done.
You good?
You got it.
Then also it's about program. I'm nigga. Teach them and make how and make go. And start the program. And the cost and you always look but you always you not to focus to get the cost and but do not to go to school. They all the cost $16 and that's the cost of 20.
Yeah, so one of your jobs is helping to make these coffee cups, right? So you use a really cool heat press machine from the makerspace, right? To press down a lever to heat print our logo onto these coffee cups with the help of some of your teachers that you were shouting out, right? And there's certain safety rules, you gotta wait till it gets to the right heat before you press the right button and activate the lever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like this job?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Antonio's real into fashion and merchandising, so this has been a cool opportunity for him to create.
The
Some
all
unique gift.
way you can think not the same. You always get that cost with $5. Only $5.
It's a hot item for sure. So we wanted to present you guys the board with one of our site coffee mugs. So if Eddie and Will could help me pass these out. We wanted to thank you guys for supporting us. And next year we're heading to a new location, so we want to thank you for helping us make that happen as we continue to grow and evolve. And we're real excited for the next chapter of the program.
Do you want to give it to her?
Yeah. Good. Thank you for that.
No, you still working. You still working, baby. You still working today. Are you Just- All right. You're gonna get. Okay. You're gonna give it to that young lady.
Thank you.
What should we say to everybody?
That's so nice.
Great job.
Do not pass you I'm moving back tomorrow.
You do not have to bring it back tomorrow. Thank you.
Yeah. That was awesome.
Yeah, thank you all again.
Thank you so much for coming out.
Okay, next up, we have some students from our freshman English classes that present some of their projects. And our English teacher, Mr. Brown, Andrew Brown.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm honored to introduce three of our senior freshmen, Zadie Poland, Sarah Okasinski Gonzalez, and your boy, Kiss, come on up. So one of the pillars of our freshman English curriculum is it's a project called the My Voice Project. And many of you probably received letters in the past about a problem that our students are passionate about solving. And so this year, one of the options was to identify a problem and make a TED Talk fashioned after, or I should say, fashioning it after a TED Talk. And so our students identified a problem, researched it, and came up with a novel solution, and then presented it to the class. And so these are some of our exemplary pieces. And so I'll just have Zadie come up, and so each student, we're a little short on time, so they made these beautiful Canva presentations. But we're just going to summarize briefly, just kind of essentially the problem and kind of what they arrived at as far as a solution. And maybe so a moment or a brief.
We have a Canvas presentation, so
Look at that.
let's take a look.
Sounds good. Yeah. Okay. Zadie, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Zadie Poland, and I'm gonna talk about grades as an evaluator of academic achievement.
She's bringing you the.
So I believe that the A through F minus E 0 to 100% grading system that's used in most middle and high schools is preventing students from actually learning. So my name is Zadie Poland, I'm a student at OPRF, and I'm someone who values learning. I think it's an incredibly important skill and it's essential to growth as a human being. And on top of that, I think I like to think I'm a hardworking student. I put in my best effort to most everything that I do in school. But I found that I put in so much effort in order to get a grade rather than to actually learn. So the first problem with this system is that grades don't actually represent mastery of the subject. For example, if the student were to get an A on a test, that would ideally mean that they have gone from not knowing their material to having internalized it and hopefully like they'll remember it for the rest of their lives. But when a student gets an A, that does not necessarily indicate that. It could mean they cheated on their test. It could mean they guessed and they're a great test taker and they happen to get most of their answers right. It could mean they learn the material temporarily and they'll forget it right after their test. But when you see an A on paper, you don't usually think further into it. You just associate it with success and then move on from it. So I think that's the first problem with this grading system. And then the second problem would be that it's from subject to subject, teacher to teacher. What teachers expect is inconsistent, which is reasonable because you can't expect that every teacher is going to have the same expectations for their students. But it becomes a sort of game for students to gauge what corners they can cut to get the grade that they want. And we hyperfixate so much on how to get an A or B rather than how to learn and remember the material that we're given. And the last problem with this grading system is that it puts excessive mental strain on students and helps them develop bad habits. When you're motivated by an external factor like an A, it kind of skews your perception of what's actually might be possible for you to attain. Because it's completely possible that a student might be in a situation where they can't get an A. They may not have access to the resources they need, or they may not have the time they need. But when you're motivated by this external factor, it becomes hard to gauge what you're actually able to achieve. So when I think about learning, I like to I'd rather participate in the learning that's motivated by me, from like myself, and wanting to learn to better understand the world. So I'd say the solution would be kind of eliminating grades in school and instead, encouraging students to seek out feedback on their, assignments after they've turned them in, to, help them seek out further information after they've submitted their assignments. There's some colleges that have implemented alternative grading systems, like at Brown University, where they, you can choose what scale you want to be graded on, which gives more freedom to the students. And at Reed College, where students aren't shown their grades throughout their semesters, so they're able to focus on actually learning. I think not addressing this issue creates a stigma around education where we think of learning as a long, grueling, boring process, when it can actually be an enjoyable process, if you're motivated by the right factors. It also discourages future learning because once a student sees their grade, they tend to move on from it quickly. And it encourages cheating because students feel pressure to achieve, and make their teachers and families proud. So I would encourage students to kind of get rid of the mindset that grades are, like the end goal, and kind of think of learning as a never-ending process, that can be enjoyable and it can be fun, if you aren't motivated by an external factor like a grade. Thank you.
It's gonna jump in and say, I consider that an interview, and in a few years we'll be happy to hire you. Well done.
Hi, my name is Sarah Oleshinsky, publicist.
Yep.
So I did child exploitation with chocolate production. So over 50% of the world's chocolate is made in Ivory Coast and Ghana, and both of these countries are known employers of child labor on their cocoa farms. And this work includes working with dangerous chemicals, lifting heavy loads, working in burning fields, and using sharp tools. And to make matters worse, cocoa production has only been increasing, and more children have been exposed to these dangerous conditions. So I'm a freshman at OPRF, and I think it's important to bring awareness to the topic of child exploitation and chocolate production because it's not really known about. And bringing awareness is like the first step in solving the problem. So chocolate needs to be made in a more ethical way that doesn't take advantage of children and impoverished families in third world countries, and is instead able to provide farmers and workers with livable wages. So there's around 1.56 million children working on cocoa farms, and around half of them are being exposed to extremely hazardous materials, according to the Department of Labor. So children as young as 12 are being trafficked from impoverished countries like Burkina Faso and being wanted to work with physical threats or incentives. They're taken to work in cocoa fields and are getting paid less than $5 a week. Because of this, they can't afford to get an education, and many of the times they have to resort to hunting for their food or sleeping in the woods. Furthermore, less than 10% of cocoa farms are inspected for fair trade by third-party groups, meaning the majority of farms are able to get away with this. An anonymous Ivory Coast farmer admitted that the working conditions on cocoa farms were a kind of slavery, and that most of the money made is going to the boss and not the laborers. And many big chocolate companies can't trace back much of where their chocolate comes from. For example, Mars can only trace 24% of their chocolate, and Nestle and Hershey can trace less than half of their chocolate to the farm. The Child Labor Cocoa Coordinating Group was founded by the Department of Labor, and it aims at tackling abusive labor practices in the cocoa supply chain. The Department of Labor is also communicating a framework of action with the Ivory Coast and Ghana on the international cocoa and chocolate industry. They're also working on expanding social service programs to minimize lower families, and reliance on child labor. There's also some ethical brands such as Tony's Chocolonely, which pays 40% more for their chocolate to ensure it's ethically made and can provide living wages to farmers. Buying premium chocolate only adds around 10% additional cost to a typical chocolate bar, so it doesn't take that much to switch to ethical brands. So children from impoverished families are illegally being imported to the Ivory Coast and working in dangerous working conditions. And the cocoa industry has spent less than 1% of their profits on this problem. And the cocoa industry is taking advantage of impoverished families and nations who are desperate to have a little more money. So you can support this change by buying chocolate from ethical brands. Some examples are Tony's Chocolonely, Divine Chocolate, Alter Rico, and more. You can also avoid purchasing from brands who are known not to track where 100% of their chocolate is produced. And in general, be mindful of the brands you're supporting. You can check if it's under the Fair Trade certification or the Rainforest Alliance certification, and that is ethically sourced. Thank you.
Give me 1 minute.
Hello, I'm here to present about the disconnect between the World History A and Freshman A curriculum. So you might be wondering who I am. I'm a freshman at OPRF, a passionate learner, a proficient writer, and I'd like to say that I try and help people in history with their writing their essays, and I'm a supporter of the Honors for All curriculum. And even though both curriculums are really good in isolation, when they're combined together, they don't create a good environment for students to learn. An overview of the problem. So the problem, more than any other classes, I have friends who drop out of world history simply because it's too challenging. I had one friend who ended up getting a 0 for the semester because they dropped out after they got their first history grade back because they were like, I just don't think I can do this anymore. And they're not the only one. I know plenty of people, I've heard from teachers that counselors don't recommend them for world history because they think it's probably too rigorous. And even some sophomores still struggle with the history curriculum. This idea can be demonstrated by my history teacher who explained in an interview that I conducted with him, the writing that they're being asked to do is completely different from their prior experiences. At the middle schools, they don't teach nearly as much about good evidence selection, what makes a good thesis, and how to make a good elaboration. And even though high school is a room for growth, it should not result in an overwhelming amount of stress and other things like that. And the solution to this is something called deeper learning. Deeper learning was invented by by Ben Johnson, which basically by connecting information that you learn in different classes, it reinforces critical thinking. And so one way we can do this is by utilizing tools that we already have at the school. The school already paid for No Red Ink, which has a very good program on nonfiction evidence selection, which can allow for students to clarify difficult concepts. Because that's one of the biggest things with the first essay, is people don't pick good evidence, which leaves them having poor elaboration, which makes it hard to write topic sentences. And honestly, the whole essay kind of falls apart. And not only that, according to ZipRecruiter, 98% of job recruiters say that soft skills have a critical impact in deciding a job. So creating these skills of critical thinking at a young age is important for making our students available for the job industry. Next, another solution to work in tandem is to promote the resources the school already creates for helping people. We have the Launch Study Hall program, which many of my friends are in, but oftentimes they don't go to the tutors because they've never seen them before and they feel nervous to see them. And one way that we can break down that barrier of meeting a tutor is by around when the first fifth year essay to bring the launch study hall to the English tutor so that they can get their essays edited at a deeper scale, more than just an individual meeting with their history teacher, because there's 20 of us in the classroom and you can't have meaningful time to decide what to do all that. And finally, we need to provide time for English and history teachers to have more interdisciplinary collaboration between the two. I interviewed both my history and my English teachers who both truly would love to work together and like try and create a better curriculum, but they don't really have the time, or they don't have the spaces to do that. And so if we were to allow them to have time meeting for school on Wednesdays or on Institute days, we could help those freshman English and history teachers to better help their students. And finally, this is a severely urgent problem. According to Illinois Report Card, 10% of freshmen are not on track for graduation, which means that they're not taking one of each selected required classes. So that's likely either because they're not taking history or science credit. And from the friends that I've talked to, it's primarily history. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. That was awesome.
Awesome, thank you. Nice job.
Well done.
Yeah. That's great.
Okay, student council, please.
Please, thank you, dear. Appreciate you.
Good evening, board. I'd like to first discuss what has been happening in student council recently. Student council officer candidates are campaigning this week. It has been a great kind of experience being able to see it from the other side. Having ran for my position as board representative, I love seeing how these students are getting creative with their campaigning, and also seeing like, you know, similar things that like me and my fellow candidates did last year. It was a really great experience to see it for my position now. And although we don't have as many individuals running for positions as we had in previous years, I think that the select few who are running are a strong group, and I'm excited to see what they're doing in future years, because even just through reviewing their questionnaires as student council officers, I can see that they have great ideas and they think very creatively. So I'm excited to see where they'll go next year with their ideas. In addition, student council held their first ever spring egg hunt on April 16th in the North Cafeteria. It was a huge success with over 60 children attending, and it was great energy. And I know that the student council officers who participated and helped run and execute this event really loved this event and how it brought together younger children from the community, and not only gave them ran an event for them, but also brought them into OPRF and kind of got that spirit presented to them, the OPRF kind of spirit and vibe. So I think that was very cool to be able to send that to them. Hopefully this event will be a yearly thing because it was very successful, and hopefully when construction has concluded, it will be able to take place in a larger space, because we were a little limited with the North Cafeteria, but I know that if it were in a bigger space in future years, it would be a great hit. Best Buddies attended their annual prom on April 12th. I attended as a Best Buddies officer with my buddy. LT hosted this year, and they did a fabulous job doing so. The space, decorations, and overall structure of the event was very well thought out. Excuse me, and I spoke to the Best Buddies Club and also all the other officers, and I heard nothing but great feedback, and a lot of individuals touched on how every year it's just a great experience to be able to spend time with their buddies, spend time with maybe buddies they haven't spent a lot of time with at this dance. So it was a great experience like it has been in past years. Oak Orchesis held their spring showcase on the 11th, 12th, and 13th. I spoke to a handful of dancers who expressed how, despite a few technical difficulties, they were overall very proud of this year's performance. Specifically, senior Lila Girona loved how Orchesis provides student dancers with the opportunity to self-choreograph performances, experience new styles, and dance with a group that they feel like is family. That is something I heard from multiple dancers and participants, how they felt that group and club organization really does create a community of individuals who feel like family. So I thought that was very lovely. And OPRF held in a RABS Professionals Day this past Tuesday, April 22nd, I believe. I spoke to 2 individuals who participated and they boasted how empowering this event was, and how they loved exploring the different professions they can explore in their future. I know I touched on the Black Professionals Day, I think 2 meetings ago, and just by communicating with individuals who have participated in these events, it really does seem like these type of events who target certain cohorts or individuals does leave an impact on OPRF. And the students I've spoken to who have participated do really feel inspired, and I think that's a great thing that OPRF is offering. The last thing I would like to touch on is a new initiative I'm trying to speak with different individuals. I will talk to Principal Parker later this month, or I guess in May, about just different communication ideas just from administration or just OPRF faculty to the student body through social media, because I know that is probably the #1 way that students will actually absorb information, because I have had a lot of students in the past month express concerns or yes, mostly just concerns about how they weren't aware of certain things happening within the building, because sadly not a lot of students check their emails, but I'm trying to maybe push that out on social media, the things that are mentioned in emails, and trying to communicate with different organizations or just people to see if that is something that can be worked out. So I just wanted to mention that initiative to you guys, but thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Nora. And we have our superintendent's announcements, please.
Okay, a few announcements here. First, congratulations to our 3rd quarter Student of the Quarter award recipients. Zia Valdez, Chloe Riles, Jewel Soy, Jumper Mendoza Macias, Joseph Naxted, Dontrell Green, CJ Robinson, Stella Smith, Alana Harrington, and Emily Griffin. Congratulations also to the varsity science Olympiad team for earning the chance to compete at state. Kudos to team members Elsa Berg, Julia Bizarre, Ian Buchanan, Rose Drab, Ben George, Ren Goodfried, Will Kagan, Bella Kessel, Rachel Craven, Lucy Liskowitz, Finn Lutz, Emerson Nunes, Nicholas Powell, Bella Saylor, and Ben Streifer, along with coaches Katie Kralik and Alex Silva. Congratulations again. Also, 9 Huskies were selected from top student artists across Illinois to showcase their work at the 12th annual Illinois High School Art Exhibition. Congratulations to Ruby Drexler, who received the Gold Award for Best Narrative for her mixed media piece, and to Olive Merrill, who was among the top 4 senior scholarship recipients in the state. Kudos to the other OPRF exhibitors, Anthony Adenati, Rune Brewer Davis, Inigo Field, Genesis Galloway, Kate Norman, Jasper Scala, and Ellie Smith. Congratulations also to the Trapeze staff on receiving the Gold Certificate at the Northern Illinois Student Press Association Conference. The Gold Certificate is the highest honor in print journalism and is awarded based on 3 full editions of a print publication. Additional congratulations to senior Sophia Lynn, who earned the Blue Ribbon Award for blogger or columnist. Congratulations to senior Liam O'Connor, who was named to the IHSA All-State Academic Team. A member of the cross-country and track teams, Liam is the school's 6th student athlete and the 2nd runner to earn this prestigious honor, which recognizes excellence in academics, athletics, and community involvement. And finally, congratulations to AP research students Ren Goodfried and Leda Cabea Hummel, who each earned first place in their respective categories at the Illinois State Academy of Science held at Southern Illinois University. So congratulations again to everybody, and that concludes my announcements. Thank you.
And last under our reports, Lisa, the FOIA report, please.
Five submitted, two resolved.
Thank you very much. Okay, we move into our recognition agenda. Is Chris here? No.
Yes, he is.
Oh, Chris Griffin, he's
Chris
not.
Griffin, no, I'm just looking for him just because I don't know.
He's not here.
Sorry, my phone.
Yes, no, that was, sorry, I could have said more than. Okay, so today we are pleased to continue our employee recognition program for this school year. This program is sponsored by Oak Park Bank, a Wintrust Bank company. And the winners will be presenting gifts on behalf of Oak Park Bank. So with that said.
All right. First, we'd like to congratulate Chanel Smithson, history teacher, who was selected as Teacher of the Month. Here are some of the highlights from the nominations received for Chanel. Ms. Smithson's students report that she is kind, funny, and inspiring. She listens, connects deeply with students, makes learning enjoyable, and motivates them to grow, both in her class and throughout their entire academic journey. Congratulations again, Chanel.
Thank you. I have my parents here, by the way, everyone. I just want to say thanks. I love students. I mean, I don't know what I would do without them every single day. Genuinely, I appreciate the community that they allow me to build in order for them to find some space that they want to use all the incredible resources at the school. And so I'm just really grateful to be in the position to do that with them. And I'm grateful that they found it awesome enough to nominate me. So we've been celebrating all week. It's been fun. So thank you so much.
Oh wait, I can't wait. Okay, my favorite for this.
They can be in them.
Let's turn around so your parents can be in.
They're okay, yeah, here, hold on, they're gonna be in it.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, smile everyone. Okay.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to extend congratulations to our employee of the month. I'm so pleased about this. Christopher Schultz, our assistant auditorium manager and stage crew sponsor. Here are some of the highlights from the nominations received for Mr. Schultz. Mr. Schultz is a dedicated, kind, and hardworking mentor who goes above and beyond for stage crew. He inspires, teaches, and supports students while giving countless hours to build community and excellence and sets. And I will just say on a personal note, Mr. Schultz is the person who taught one of my kids how to use a power drill on stage. And I will never forget when she came home and said, "Oh my God, Mr. Schultz taught me how to use a power drill." And they let me build a platform, and then he let people walk on a platform. And that is what you do. You teach, like, more than that, you empower. You empower our students, and that is why you're so beloved in our theater department and across the school. So thank you, Chris. Congratulations. That's great.
So I was in tech, in the background, and I don't really have a speech, so working already, you shouldn't see me. But to speak to that point, if any of you have children that have gone through here and through our program, I'm sorry for the maybe house renovations they've done. But yeah.
You know, as we come up, I'm gonna give you this shout out for Chris's most fabulous moment in my memory of the school. This is, we had some sort of assembly or something in the auditorium,
Oh, God.
and the stand for the American flag was broken, it wasn't working, and so it was or missing or something, and so the flag wasn't gonna stand up. He just walked out there. And for the for the entire ceremony, he held the flag for everybody. That's.
Jim is not here.
I would like to congratulate Jim Hart, Husky Booster Club President, our volunteer of the month. Here are some of the highlights from the nominations received for Jen. Jen, an OPRF alum and president of the Husky Booster Club, is a dedicated leader who passionately supports student enrichment in academics, arts, activities, and athletics while strengthening community connections. Congratulations. Thank you, Jen.
Okay. Just a quick comment, because, you know, we've done a lot of work to try to revamp our board meetings and focus on different things, but I can say as a sitting board member, to spend the last 40 minutes hearing directly from our students in a variety of areas, focusing on our students, focusing on the educators of those students is very meaningful to me as a board member and helps shape the work that we do as a board. So I really appreciate the words and from all who have graced us with their presence tonight. So with that said, we move to public comment. Lisa, is there any public comment?
I'm sorry, we have two tonight?
Okay, so for those speaking, please limit public comment concerning matters within the jurisdiction to 3 minutes. And this is not intended to be a dialogue with the board. Any response time will be 2 weeks. So let us begin.
I'm the first speaker for tonight is Ms. Andrea Jones. Ms. Jones, if you can make sure that light is green on the phone.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Andrea Jones, and I proudly serve as the scholarship chair with Apple, a parent and community group dedicated to uplifting and advocating for our Black students here at OPRF. I want to personally invite you to join us on our annual Feed Scholarship Dinner on Tuesday, May 6th at 7 p.m. right here at the high school in the Fab Cab. This is a heartfelt evening where we celebrate the accomplishments of our graduating seniors, students we've watched grow, overcome, and thrive. This work is only possible because of supporters like you. Your passion and generosity has helped us award scholarships that truly make a difference in students' lives. Tonight, I'm asking that you continue that support by making a donation so we can keep sowing into the futures of our young scholars. Full transparency, we're about $4,850 from our goal, so if you just want to write one check, that's the number. Each year, we take time to recognize individuals who left a meaningful mark on our school community. Last year, we honored Mr. Leandrew Wade as he retired after many years of dedicated service. This year, we're proud to recognize Simone Speech, one of our very own alumni who as a student led our volleyball team to the sectional championship in 2013 and continues to inspire. We hope to see you on May 6th, not just to support our students, but to be part of a moment that shows them how much their village believes in them. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just want to congratulate Andrea on being accepted into a PhD program.
Oh my
So proud of you.
goodness. Thank you, Ms. Jones. Our next speaker is Mr. John Duffy.
I'm probably not gonna be here on May 1st, so I wanna extend a deep thanks for your hard work in this Bukowski, 12 years. What a run. You've accomplished so much. It's been a transition period. You've been an important part of it. I'm here to talk about the Resource Equity Review Project that's underway. You heard the details last week. Racial equity advocates see great promise in the planning and the investigation phases of that review. However, we also see a serious flaw. It can be addressed, it can be fixed. It depends on you. You're in charge. This board and the next board comes. The administration takes direction from you. It's not the other way around. Equity resources assessments in District 200, policy 712 prescribe a robust, transparent involvement of the community stakeholders in equity evaluations of new or existing programs, policies, and budgeting. This kind of participation is also explicitly stated in the framework of the consultants we have hired and their affiliates. And yet we're not doing it. Our community and racial equity advocates affirm these same values and beliefs about conducting evaluations. We're grateful that District 200 has in the recent past, with pride, rejected traditional practices that exclude the community, that do not engage people who have been harmed by past inequities. And yet, we seem to be going forward contradicting that commitment. We are greatly disappointed that the Resource Equity Review Plan presented to the board tonight fails to follow equity supportive assessment protocols agreed to by the community and the board and the administration under the leadership of Superintendent Joylyn Pruitt-Adams. She's gone, but she's not forgotten. We can't forget what was put in place in those very tumultuous years. Without authentic community engagement in the equity resource assessment, District 200 falls back on old ways of operating. Sadly, in ways that do not ensure community input, transparency, accountability, and a chance to do better. It's diminished. It doesn't take much to change that. To do it with spirit and commitment, that was the question. We call on you, as thousands did in the last election, to faithfully follow the District 200 racial equity policy and procedures. That's a bar that's been set. It's a bar that can be met. Then we've got a greater chance for success. Inclusion was clearly demonstrated here tonight with our students. Must do the same with this review process we committed to. And it looks like it's a good start, but it needs this commitment. You have to make that. And I'll just say this, yeah, thanks, Tom. Thanks for not coming on it. If you don't do it, all the people that have come together in the past to turn this will wonder why. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, that concludes our public comments for tonight.
Okay.
Our next order of business is our consent agenda. Before proceeding, are there any consent items the board members would like to see pulled for discussion or otherwise? Okay, hearing none, I move to approve the consent items as follows. A, approval of the open and closed minutes of March 20 and April 10, 2025. A declaration that the audio tapes of the closed session minutes of June 2023 be destroyed, and that the closed session minutes of January 1, 1986 through March 20, 2025 shall remain closed except for the redaction closed session of October 4, December 13, and 21, 1993, and January 14, 23, and 28 of 1994. B. Pardon?
It says 84.
1984, sorry, thank you. Good. 1990, all right. Approval of the personnel recommendations, including new hires, summer school hires, and resignations. C, approval of the adoption and purchase of textbooks at a cost of $134,000 and $46.23 as presented. The approval of the 2025-2026 salary recommendations for administrators, managers, and non-affiliated employees, and pay rate increases for food service employees for a total cost of $288,523.33, which is $209,223.09 below the cost of salary increases for these employee groups for the 2025-2026 forecasted in our 5-year financial projections. E, approval of the proposed revisions and additions to the behavior education plan for school year 25-26 that were approved by and brought forth from the Culture, Climate, and Behavior Committee. F, approval of the 2026. It says to 2028, but is that right?
2026 to 2020 through 2028.
28?
Yes.
Okay, to 20, we're getting old. Through 2028, Justin's yearbook contract as presented. Holy. Approval of change order number 2 to the Verigy contract in the amount of $56,225.98 for Cool Play infill as presented. H, approval of the stipend recommendations for the 2025-2026 school year for the total estimated increase of $35,327.03 to the athletic and activities budget. Approval, I, approval of the proposed Board of Education annual budget for fiscal year 2026 as presented. J, approval of the proposed Board of Education meeting dates for school year 2025-26 as presented. K, approval of the February 2025 Treasurer's report as presented. L, approval of the February 2025 financial report as presented. M, approval of the March and April 2025 check disbursements and financial resolutions, including the payroll resolutions for May 2025.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Bramless.
Yes.
Ms. Winsley.
Yes.
Dr. Livingston.
Yes.
Dr. Maharon.
Yes.
Mr. Brisbane.
Yes.
Mr. Arkin.
Yes.
And Mr. Costi.
Yes. The motion passes 7-6. And that concludes our action for this evening. We now move to our discussion agenda, of which we have 2 topics. The first being our Project 2 quarterly update. Dr. Johnson?
Yeah, we're excited to bring this such update. Our last one was in October. We have representatives here from District of Office, of course. Tony Arbogast is here. Jeff Bergman, our Director of Construction, and 2 folks here from Rating, Jake Hodge and Karen Rowling, to give an overview of where we are with this. This is something we committed to, and we will continue to present to the board on a quarterly basis through the length of the project, and that is in sync with our strategic plan 34, board goal at one of the facilities, and board policies 410, 470, and 460. So I don't know who's kicking off actually with the 3 of you, so I'll just turn it over to the table.
Sure, I'll just state that as you'll hear, we continue to be on time with our schedule and staying on budget. Some pretty exciting updates, and visually we're getting to the point that very soon you will see a lot of changes in that area. So with that, I will kick over to our Gil Bating team to walk us through the prior quarter.
So this quarter so far, we've done about 34,000 man hours worth of work at 0 lost time this quarter as well. From a schedule standpoint, our foundation, concrete foundation, is about 85% complete. We have 3 more walls to pour, and our entire foundation basement wall is done. We're moving into masonry and steel activities starting next week, and it'll take us all the way through summer and into fall. So finally, we'll start seeing the building go vertical, which is an awesome milestone for us. In the meantime, we are working on scheduling our activities, summer work that happened inside the school. We had a little bit more enabling work to go on. Wrapping up our connection to the geothermal fields as well. So as Verigy wraps up their work in June-ish, July-ish, we need to be making our ties to them so that we're ready to go when we start doing build out inside the school. Another really
big milestone for us to report back is all of our mechanical equipment, our air handling units, our chillers, pumps, all that are in storage units located here in Chicagoland, which is huge. Typically, we don't see those for quite some time, so having those on hand, great. And all of our steel is about 90% fabricated, ready to go in a yard nearby as well, so from a material procurement side, we're sitting very well. So far this quarter though, the weather we had in February, we did have some other days lost, so 6 days hit us where we couldn't work due to heavy rain, cold temperatures and that. But we're working on mitigating those impacts, keeping on schedule. From a financial side, we're still sitting at the 91 million mark for our current budget. Our remaining contingency, we're sitting at 1.5. For our trade allowances, we're at 1.8. So far, cost to complete to date, we're at 18% complete. And then we have 7 changes out there right now that are for review, ranging about $88,000. Anything else?
I just want to touch on one thing that Tony briefly mentioned. So we've talked about the NICOR delay that hit us at the beginning of the project, and we've done a lot of things and worked really hard, both with the district and as a team with our subcontractors to really try and overcome that and minimize the impact that had to the initial project. So a lot of good discussion has gone on, a lot of good collaboration. You see on the top of the dashboard here, the addition is tracking a July 2nd completion date, and the renovation that happens in the west pool will be done July 31st per the contract. That will start June 1st or whatever the last day of school is. We'll renovate that area. And while we're at the same time finishing the addition, but both pieces of the project are on schedule to be done by July 31st date. So we continue to push that. We made up, or we had a good, even though we lost 6 days with weather in the last quarter, our concrete schedule was aggressive. Our concrete contractor worked pretty aggressively. We've been working six days a week. I think their crew had about 27 guys here for a couple of weeks, which is pretty good for that size. And we look forward to seeing this thing come to life and come out of the ground with steel starting on Monday. So we're mobilizing the crane tomorrow. So I think that's it. Any questions?
I just have one of it. It's great to hear that we like most of the steel is fabricated. We absolutely a lot of things in. Do we anticipate or we just not know the tariffs that might have any impact on us financially?
Yeah, so that's a good question. We are tracking tariffs closely, as everybody is. It's a popular topic. We've got 2 soft notices, I'll call them. One from our elevator manufacturer and one from our glass and glazing manufacturer for the aluminum impacts. Obviously, that's not the tariffs, nothing is finalized. And so when the tariffs are applied is when that material hits a port. And so we will be continuing to monitor that situation and working with the district if there is any impacts from that. Right now, it's a soft notice is all it is. We don't anticipate material delays because of it. It's just strictly a potential of a financial impact. But nothing major in that regard either. So we'll see what's in place when those materials actually hit. The elevator isn't going into fabrication until summer.
Correct.
And the aluminum frames and glass won't be going into fabrication until summer/fall. So we've got some time for the tariff topic to play out.
Yeah, I've got 2 questions. The first has to do with the, you got the one constraint about the transmission line. And I assume you solve that problem. And can you just kind of briefly let us know?
That is actually one of the summer activity items that we're currently coordinating with ComEd. So there's an existing transmission line that goes through the mall. You guys impacted during cafeteria was going up. I think it was ran into it before. So this time we actually have our tie-in for geothermal pipes go underneath and around that transmission line. So right now, we're in our, let's say, 4th month of coordinating with them on exactly how to get through. We actually have a game plan set now, and now it's just coordinating their trades to dig, expose safely, so that our trades can then get the pipe underneath and then we backfill. So it's.
Is that an additional cost? Is that gonna, or that one will be? Well,
We're still waiting for the cost to come in. It may be an additional contract with ComEd, depending on the work that they're doing. But we've had some numbers kicked around, but there hasn't been a hard number that has come across from that yet in the proposal. And then once we see their final proposal to us, the trades are then able to give us their estimate on the work that they do, and then we'll be able to determine if that has to come forward or if it's within the allowances of those packages. We're just waiting to see right now. But the ComEd, when we have that proposal, will likely come forward for approval as an addition to the project.
Okay, and then my other question has to do with the substantial completion, and this might be more for you, Tony, is. Obviously on time, July 2nd, that's great. But what does that mean for when it'll be available for use? When it's ready to go, because I assume when you turn it over to us, then we have to get all of our equipment and everything in and set up and have it ready to go for our students. So what does that mean? I'm making myself clear on this question.
What I would say would mean is July 2nd is it's a very encouraging date. It'll be a lot of work to then get in, put furniture up, set up all the technology. But with that, we've have already kind of started to plan kind of a sequence that people can follow, tech runs, and then we set up furniture or vice versa. And it just means that there'll be a lot of coordination and work that goes into July, but very encouraging then for being ready for the start of that school year.
Okay, great.
Good question. I just have one. I'm just curious about the days lost to weather. Is it probably the case that this past winter was the greater risk and that next winter is less of a risk because it's mostly interior work by that point?
Yeah, you're 100% right on that. By this winter, we should be getting ourselves closed. The majority of all of our work is closing the building up and then doing the interior build out. We should have very minimal impact.
So other than weather risk, is there any other risk that you see over the coming year that would delay the schedule or not more case?
No, not outside, no.
I would say, we're fully excavated on the building. We've exposed anything we can expose there. The one, I'll call it challenging area we have yet is we have a bunch of utility work to do in the alley. And there is, including that geothermal connection. There are some other utilities we just have to be careful and cautious around to work in the alley. Thankfully, as a part of the relocation and demolition for the starter project to the gas service that was in the alley, or that is still in the alley, that was abandoned in place. So that's already cut, capped, and safe. But there is some touchy work. It won't delay the building though, right? So there's probably 2 weeks worth of work of utility work in the alleyway that I would call still a little bit risky of unknown conditions as to what we're going to find. But the building is coming out of the ground. We've surveyed the existing building, the floor elevations to make sure our new steel is lining up and we're not going to be 2 inches off when we get setting. That's all been done and coordinated. So having the materials showing up, electrical gears starting to arrive in June as well. So a lot of big things are arriving early, so they're here when we need them.
Other questions? I have one suggestion or thing to throw out there, which is would it be worthwhile to have now you're gonna get into the phase like where things are starting to appear and have times available that board members could actually see things as we go. You can watch videos, but I think you need to say when's this is a good time frame right after you do rough cut or whatever, pick the times and then allow board members to kind of sign up for that. It would have to comply with open meetings, so it would be, one or two board members at a time, board members and delegates, and provide that, so. I toured geothermal this week and wanted to get some mud boots, so I always think it's good to see this stuff, so.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that. So,
Yeah, just tell us kind of when good time slots and then it can be coordinated.
Okay.
It sounds also too, late in your term, whatever it comes to, that we can extend this to former.
Oh, thank you.
Just like not efficient for such a thing.
Board members, former, and
Of course.
all right. All right, that was what I was trying to get as an invite, so I think so. All right, thank you very much.
Give it.
I like to think something in my life, see you taking positions.
Okay. Our second and last discussion topic is the resource allocation review and educational research strategies. Dr. Johnson?
Okay, as Dr. Applewhite and McKee comes forward to present this, let me just highlight that this is something we had brought to the board a year ago, a process that we were undertaking, and this is an update on that work, not complete, an update on that work, and we're excited to bring it forward. So obviously this is in line with board policy 712, as you heard earlier. So I'll turn it over to the two of you, and we'll open up for questions in a little bit. So go ahead. Oh, no, I realized I forgot something. You were about to say the words. One of the things that we learned as we were looking at this, which is a little bit outside the exact nature of the work, but it is a great kind of byproduct of work. We've been working in the district for several years to build out data visualizations that we can use as a district internally to help us better understand quickly our data and share it out. And one of the things that we saw when we were doing this is that the number of students, you're going to see in this report, we're talking a lot as an example of this work, our analysis of freshmen on track. And one of the things that we saw is the number was consistently in that 60 range, right? We even saw that reference in earlier board conversations on this topic. However, our 60 some students who are not on track. Thank you.
61. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 60 some students who are not on track. Individual counts of students, right? Well, if we figure, we heard even in that fabulous student report earlier tonight that 90% of our students are on track, so 10% are not on track, and our freshman classes routinely are right around that 90-100 category. So that number, so you figure it should be about 90. One of the things that we learned is, and it took us that kind of, when we caught that, we had to work with the state to really understand why this was coming up in the state report like the way it was. And the way it just simply works is how we as a district count credits. It is different than not all high schools. In fact, there's a good handful of schools around this area who count credits the way we do, 1 credit per semester rather than 1 credit per year. But the state formula relies on that 1 credit per year. And so as our data gets uploaded into the state, we simply just weren't aware that how they kind of go through their rigmarole to pump out their visualizations was not representing our data the way that needed to be represented. So our freshman on track data is really somewhere in the 93.5% area. And so I bring that up here because it's an opportunity to do so, but I think the accurate information is pretty important, but also so that we can head off right away some discrepancies, right? In what is in this report referencing that slightly higher percentage and what we had talked about previously. So, yeah.
Does that also translate then for, I mean, what I'm thinking about is the graduation rate? Because, we were talking about, we were at 90% freshman on track, but then we're at 95% graduation rate, so we're gaining, throughout the 4 years, we're gaining 5% of those kids.
Are you asking if the 95% general number is if that's accurate? Yeah. That is accurate. The method by figuring out, the method of determining who exactly is a graduate is a cohort specific one. It's a completely different process that is not dependent on any sort of calculation of credits by the state for that purpose. That's done through our internal processes. So yeah.
Is it fair to say that we're only recovering 1.5% rather than 5%?
I think that's right.
So can I just make sure I fully grasp and reset? So, because in prior presentations, when we've gone through freshman contract and we've said that we've been at roughly 90% or pretty flat for an extended period of time.
That's right.
It hasn't really increased or gone down.
That's right.
And that 90% is slightly above the state average, right? 89% or something like that. But we were thinking we were at the state average based on that data.
Mm-hmm.
And now what you're saying is we've really been at 93 and change for that period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to qualify that just a little bit. The way that we have checked and kind of caught this is through this analysis that we figured out the problem. We have not gone back and done any sort of recalculations for prior years. So I want to limit our ability to kind of make claims well in the past. It's for last school year that we're confident with this figure.
Thank you.
Okay.
So going forward, we will adjust how we do things in the state, or how do we make sure that the accurate numbers are showing up on the statements?
We went through, I'm gonna spare all the details of this, but we went through various possible solutions, including completely, changing our method of, granting credits for kids, so shifting to that 1 credit per year, which would be a huge shift, right? A huge change, which would be grandfathered in, and but we found another much simpler way, and so we're able to do that. And we did it through collaborating with other school districts who both were aware of this and had that fixed themselves, and those who didn't know, right? This problem existed as well, and so we were able to be useful in that regard as well. So the team did great work with that, so, but we have it fixed.
So thank you, Dr. Nutley, for clarifying that. So this resource allocation review aligns with our strategic priority to ensure that every student is prepared for post-secondary success. Our goal is to use data to assess whether all students have the resources they need to meet academic expectations. So starting with a focus on freshmen on track as a leading indicator of high school and post-secondary success. We partnered with Education Resource Strategies, or ERS, to not only build our capacity to do this work in the absence of them, but they helped us initially analyze how our current use of time, people, and funding impacts student outcomes. This multi-phase review process used the freshman on track metric to explore how students are progressing toward core academic milestones and to identify areas where we can better support students who are falling behind. And so some of our key findings are, as Dr. Johnson said, overall 93% of our freshmen are on track. But there were some performance gaps that were identified, such as students entering from outside of our main feeder schools had a 25% off-track rate. Students facing economic hardship or with specialized support needs show lower freshman on-track rates. Black and Hispanic students also show impacted off-track rates. These students are more likely to need targeted academic and transition support. These findings show a need for early tailored interventions to keep all students on pace for graduation and post-secondary success. So in response, we found some root causes and areas of focus, such as early warning. 90% of off-track students were flagged by semester 1. The transition gaps noted where transfer students face additional challenges that our existing supports just don't fully address. The academic gaps, such as many off-track students who are enrolled in Tier 3 supports, may need more intensive and differently structured interventions. And grading practices. Our current grading policy lacks sufficient clarity and guidance in some areas, which can occasionally make it challenging to ensure grades are reported consistently with integrity and in a timely manner. And so some actionable next steps that we have decided on will be expanding early intervention systems and increasing responsiveness when students begin to struggle. Piloting enhanced transition supports for students entering midstream or from outside of our feeder schools. Reviewing current academic interventions to ensure that they are sufficiently personalized and impactful. And then aligning staff schedules and supports to student performance data to better match resources where demonstrated needs are shown. So this review just reminds us how important it is to use our resources in ways that truly support all students. We're starting with the focus of freshmen, but that's just the beginning. Our goal is to keep improving so that every student, no matter who they are or where they're headed, has the tools and support they need to be successful here at Oak Park Children's Boys High School. So I'll open it up for questions if you have any.
Just had a quick question about the students with IEPs being 3.5 times more likely to be off track than their non-IEP peers. Is that pretty consistent with our peer districts? That glaring difference, or is that a unique problem we have here that needs addressed?
I didn't analyze the peer districts with each metric. We do an analysis of the freshman track during the state of the district presentation. And I do believe just in general, we are over state average. So I would hypothesize that it would be similar. But I didn't do that peer district type of analysis.
So thanks for the data, and I really appreciate that the analysis we were able to get down to the 61 students and understand at a very target level what might be needed, so we can be more specific, because to the points that you make out for why it could be a number of reasons that may be leading these students to be off track. So I think that will greatly help us. How are we continuing, or I guess starting or partnering with our feeder districts? So we think about our D90, D97 8th graders who are coming into the school. Are there things we're doing differently with those with those school districts in the past?
So we are starting with our in-house resources. We have not gotten to the articulation with the feeder schools just yet. That is something that we are exploring. However, we're looking at what our current resources are and how the transition to 8th grade, from 8th grade to 9th grade is being affected. So we are doing things, or we're going to be shifting and doing things differently as a result of that. But there has been, and we don't know when, because these tasks take some time and we just haven't gotten to that part yet. So it could be in our discovery phase, and some of the people that we're talking to that we need to begin that articulation a little bit sooner, but we haven't gotten to that phase.
But this is where we're sort of understanding where we are right
now. So right now, we're just discovering where we are and where our supports are. So we chose to focus on transfer students right now, because when we looked at the other parts of the analysis, it's the lowest hanging fruit. These are things that we can kind of control right now. And so we're just really going around and auditing what we're currently doing for students, where the gaps are, and what we can do most immediately for those students that come in the fall. So we do have some things planned, but we're not done. And so what we hope is that if that comes up in our conversations with the other stakeholders that we're communicating with within the building, then yes, we will figure out how to best begin that participation.
So I also think this doesn't necessarily have to do with this analysis, but our MTSS process that Dr. Applewhite and I have been overseeing, we've done outreach that way.
Okay.
And so like that's to draw the distinction, like what you're talking about here, you know, the subset, what we've been working on through MTSS, with our MTSS coordinator, Hannah Maurer, has reached out in a more holistic way to flag students that wouldn't normally be flagged through our typical intervention process, like with test scores and things like that, that we sort of are aware of. We've tried to find, you know, maybe students who are test scores are fine, but we're seeing grade problems. So we're trying to collect additional data from our feeder districts on students, including the ones that also might have been flagged for academic interventions. So the MTSS process is doing that, but the transfer student, or I'm not sure which one you're asking about, but the transfer student process, we haven't, we're still working through with our, this process.
Yeah, I did transfer students, something that's more, you know, more recent that we're looking into, but I also know that we hear sometimes that from some of our students coming in from our feeder districts, that things perhaps they're not getting, or perhaps opportunities to have some partnerships with the feeder districts about, you know, kind of what kind of preparation they might need for coming into the high school. So I wasn't sure if there was, you know, more conversations relative to how do you prepare them for coming to OPR.
So that is happening with that process, with the intensive fighters, with our communicating with the feeder schools, so yes.
Yeah, I think two other additional pieces that are relevant to this conversation, I mean, you know, holistic, you know, completely comprehensive, better word, kind of articulation across our disciplines isn't where, you know, we would want it to be. It's an ongoing process. But there's two things I can speak to well. One is a few years ago, we formalized our data sharing agreement, right, with 90 and 97. And that ensures that the information that we have coming into the district is consistent, and that's incredibly valuable for us. That was a real win for the district maybe 5 years ago when we did that, ish. And the other thing that I'll share is we have begun, we have been able to work pretty closely this school year with both feeders, is through our assistant superintendent for student learning's office, to really work on math articulation, because some of the changes that we've made in the curriculum and that have been made in our feeders as well have really warranted that level of really kind of clear articulation. So in those ways, we have some articulation that's going on from a kind of understanding kind of macro level, but always something that we are interested in getting deeper and more comprehensively. Yeah.
I have a question. So I know that 25% that were off track came from places that were not feeder schools. And I was wondering if that changed, because that was last year, if it got any better, and if it did, if maybe it was because it was like a social problem, or it's like a social problem, or like an academic like change. And if it's social, maybe there's something you could do to help them. Well, I'm just wondering.
From a data standpoint, I can't speak to that exactly, year to year. But transfer students, you know, it's a small group, so things can change and shift. But I think, I'm trying to remember now just the historical data, and I can't quite remember what the historical data is, but that's a good question about, is this a, you know, one-time thing or is it a trend? I'm pretty sure when I looked at it was a trend. But because it is a small group, you might see some variation. But I would guess, just from also my experience in the building, that regardless of the shifts, it's still a concern.
So I really appreciate that question, because it's a very good question. We were having this conversation at a communications committee meeting with some of the feedback about just new families coming into the district. and just even parents, like what can we do to better support parents who just aren't familiar with our school or haven't gone through our school systems and, don't have the connections, don't have a relationship, don't have neighbors that they know yet they can talk to about what should they do. And I think it's worthwhile also keeping that in mind for the students. So thank you for that question.
Yes, thank you for the question. We have begun working with student services to put something in place next year specifically for our, not just our transfer students, but those students that transition in. And so those things are in the works. So thank you for that question, because that can be an issue with coming into a new environment and maybe with a new community.
Can you amplify that? So what are the things that are in the works for transfer students for in the coming year and families of transfer students?
Yeah. So I met with Director of Student Services. There will be a transfer parent dinner in September. There will be a series of workshops for transitioning and transfer students in the first quarter, September, October, and then again in December. And then 2 more parent workshops in the spring to support parents that are transitioning and to ensure that they become connected to the community, what they should know, who they should meet, and so forth. And then also just we're gonna be working more closely with our community outreach coordinator to put some things into place too, so that when these families and students come into the community and building, that he can be activated to reach out to them for supports that they may need.
I really appreciate that. I really appreciate the focus on families of the students, because that's where I think that's a really effective communication path. The students, the transfer students themselves, what additional supports are we providing for that cohort? The fact that there's a really elevated percentage of the transfer students that are on track, this leads me to think that we should be actively providing supports to average transfer students. So are we doing that? Can you amplify that?
We are thinking about that and having conversations with that. So we're in the discovery phase right now. So we're meeting with different groups of people to determine what we currently do and how we can best amplify and do things better. And so we haven't come to any concrete items of things that we're going to do, but we are having those discussions and conversations now.
We had time on when we be able to put some things in place for next school year.
Just so you know, I do know there is an ambassadors program. So there is a program that is in place for transfer students that is run through the student services. So I just want to be clear, it's not that there is nothing. What we're trying to do is understand with our process and our discovery process, talking to all the different stakeholders, all the different areas that might have something to do within the entire transfer process, from the minute that somebody decides, is our website friendly to transfer families, all the way to, once they land here and as they're progressing, as Dr. Elwood just talked about their experience that first year. So the discovery process that we're in that next phase, these are all the things we are trying to find out, and because it is a smaller group, one of the reasons we chose to do this as part of this process is we are able to activate quicker, right? We wanted to see what this process is like, especially with something that we felt is, we can do actions on very quick, so we can understand this entire process. So the conversations we're having with the different stakeholders right now are definitely leading us toward that.
Different question. The 60-some students that are off track, what's the connection between that group and the group that does not graduate? Are we tracking that data? Do we know the connection between their freshman experience and then who's not graduating?
Actually, at this time, I wouldn't say that I confidently know if those students exactly are the ones that end up not graduating. Because haven't done that type of analysis to see. And just, thinking about the whole freshman or the whole high school experience, I'm not real sure, because it is a small group. The one thing when I was doing all the analysis, I felt really, I wanted to have a takeaway, and I think I wrote in the report, is because it's such a small group, it's really hard to just extrapolate who these students are, right? It's been to draw a trend from such a small group. That was the one thing for instance, we talked about tier 3. Most of our tier 3 freshmen are on track. So I just want to be clear, it's not that if you're 2 or 3, you're off track. It's just that most of the kids who were off track landed in 2 or 3, not all, and not even a huge amount. So it just, the one thing I want to be real careful is that we're not drawing broad conclusions. So to think about your question, I think it's a great question, that definitely gonna be something I want to figure out how to look at for sure. Especially now that we've built these data models out in our system. Are they the same? Are they recovering? Are kids falling off track throughout high school? Which I was MTSS coordinator here for almost 10 years. You know, my guess is that it's probably both and, a little of both and. We have a small group of students who don't graduate. We have a small group of students that are off track. There's probably some overlap, and there's probably not some overlap. So
You might be right.
yeah,
Or it
so,
could, or it could,
yeah.
or it could be a key indicator.
It could be,
So
it could be a key indicator, yeah.
Let's not watch it.
And so, yeah, that would be an interesting population to look at.
And then my last question is, I just wanted to give the administration a chance to respond, to CEE's ask about, a robust and transparent involvement of community stakeholders and equity evaluation of new or existing programs. Can you comment on that request?
So this process is a little bit different than the process outlined in our policy. So the racial equity analysis tool will eventually play into this work. What we're doing now is looking at student level data to determine if the resources we're currently, so when the interventions and such as that we're currently doing, if they're effective or impactful. And so when it gets to, I think maybe the phase 6, where we're talking about resources and then allocating time to people, that's where the stakeholder involvement will be, but it's key stakeholders that are germane to the areas of focus that we're talking about. And so we have identified our major stakeholders, such as our community outreach coordinator, our director of student services, our ambassadors, our counselors, MTSS. And so these are the people that would be helping to determine where we go next in that form of an analysis. We're not anywhere near there yet. I gave a tentative timeline, so hopefully we will be in that phase fairly quickly. But again, it also just, it's based off the tasks that we are tackling at that time. But it will eventually come into play.
And Tanya, forgive me, I know I asked that question, but I can't remember your answer earlier this week. What is the timeline for the next 3 phases?
So I gave you the timeline from the beginning. So in the winter, we completed phase 3, where we came back to the board and we shared our findings and started our tentative action plan. Currently, we are in phase 4 of the discovery, where we're meeting with our stakeholders. And so we're hoping by late spring, early summer, or into the summer, that we'll be into phase 5, which is the synthesis of what we've discovered. And then by fall of 2025, hopefully we'll be in phase 6. And so that is where the additional analysis as per the board policy will come in. Right now, we're just looking at student level data to determine where our opportunity gaps are, so that we can effectively move forward to determine how we need to then allocate resources. We're just doing a review of what we're currently doing.
Thank you.
Just want to come back to the IEP, part one more time. So part of what's going to happen, of course, is you're going to be going back to the theater schools and talking with the staff that design IEPs to hopefully have a dialogue that provides some diagnostics on what we're missing about this transition, what's not done at that level, to have a 3.5 time more likely rate to be off track as a 9th grader. But then also I would say it would merit a deeper dive into the social aspects as well of what we're doing to socially prepare students with IEPs and what that acclimation process looks like and what sort of structure and process we're currently applying to students that would, likely have more difficult time adapting and getting into a new rhythm and routine and a new environment.
So that also speaks to and a question of timeline. So that's another stakeholder group that we have yet to engage. And so that would be from our sped, having more conversations with our sped department to really build out and figure out what could be the gaps there. So we found this information, we haven't begun to work on all the parts of it. So that also speaks to the work of this analysis and what this means and how other metrics tend to pop up. So what you're bringing out is also illustrating how these other metrics tend to pop up. So yes, we've included that in the report, just to let you know what we found. We're not saying that we've completely built that out or begun in discovery of that phase. We're just in the discovery phase of the transfer students. And so this freshman on track metric has taken us the better part of the year, and we're still in the ongoing phases. And as you can see, with the timeline that I gave is strictly just on this transfer student process, because that's what we decided to tackle first. There are still other metrics within this freshman on track analysis that we haven't even began, but that is one that is coming up. So hopefully I can come back next year and tell you that we started on that.
Thank you.
Good.
Yes, first, I want to say thank you. I'm really impressed with the, number one, the presentation, number two, the work that's being done. It seems to me that going back to 2019, when we, I think it was 2018, 2019, we created the racial equity policy. That we had no, at that time, we had no idea what it would look like. That's kind of what it would look like. And now we're seeing it. We're seeing, we're really seeing where we're at the road. I would, however, encourage, right, and I understand, I think community engagement at some point is essential. And I understand that this might not be the right point in time because it's been evaluated. But I think as we move on and then when we get into at least when we get into the allocation recommendations that it's at some point and maybe at a higher level that we need to have some community engagement. I think that's important. But I think the work here is obviously foundational and fundamental. I'm incredibly impressed with what you're doing, so thank you.
I think the only thing I'd say is, I think this is all great as far as it goes, and I would just ask you, as we keep the focus that we have on the racial equity piece, that we also keep a focus on disability equity, gender equity, et cetera. And, the IEP things speak to that. I don't yet see anything relating to gender in this report. So just, yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Fair.
So I know Dr. Applewhite, but could you introduce yourself, please?
No. I'm Kristen McKee. I'm coordinator of learning analytics and supports.
Thank you. And you have some of this data expressed in different ways. Students with IEPs are 3.5 times more likely to be off track. And in other ways, you express the data as 17% of our Black freshmen are off track. What percentage of students with IEPs are off track?
So one of the things, and this report was meant to be descriptive and not a report on exactly the freshman on track metric. So the one thing we did grapple with is the purpose was to illustrate the process of the RS analysis and to provide enough insight so that you kind of understand, hey, these are what we're finding, and this is how we're moving about. So for the freshman on track analysis, I think the exemplars were just to illustrate. So I didn't report on the freshman on track as if I was reporting on the freshman on track. I hope that makes sense. So in terms of percentage, this again, I didn't include it just because of that. It was just as a descriptor of key findings. I can't quite recall what it is. It looks like Greg might be looking for it.
That's okay, it's just, you've got various demographic characteristics and educational
Mhm.
background characteristics and how they came to our district characteristics, all of which are expressed as a percentage of those freshmen being either on or off track. IEP was the only one that wasn't, but it's not that important right now. I'm sure you have that information. So if I were to take a step back from a 50,000-foot view and recap what's going on, starting about a year ago, in partnership with your consultant DRS, you undertook an effort to actually analyze where the equity gaps occur. And broadly speaking, the notion of equity is an organization or institution like ours or any school district, you have finite resources. Equity is about allocation of the resources to the children who need it most. So right now, you've undertaken this analysis in partnership with a consultant, and it seems that the first question was, what's the right metric to begin to measure where equity gaps might occur? And you landed on the freshman on track metric. And then you dug into data about what are the characteristics of those freshmen who are off track. And again, there's different demographic and educational background characteristic of kids who are off track. And so you work your way up, you've got, some things get flagged. 12% of Hispanic freshmen are off track, 17% of Black freshmen are off track. Then you go into a number of the IEP students are off track. Transfer students, 25% of those students are off track. And then the largest number is free and reduced lunch kids, which are 30% off track. So right now you're wrapping your arms around who really are these kids. And concurrently, what I hear you say is you're developing or you're starting to identify the strategies and tactics of the appropriate deployment of resources to help these kids. And you're still figuring out the right strategies and tactics, but did I hear you say that the group that you think you can start with first is transfer kids? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. But at the same time, it would be true that among our 62 kids who are off track, you could have a child who is free and reduced lunch, is a transfer student, and is on an IEP, and is Black.
There's a lot of overlap.
A lot, right. So is your approach then to, as you're still figuring out what are the right strategies and tactics, to still center in on just one characteristic, i.e. transfer kids? Or would you look at the actual individual kids who may be affected by or a member of a multitude of those characteristics, just like the hypothetical, and try to assess targeting kids first rather than individual kids first, rather than just simply use a general category like transfer students?
So thinking about the analysis. And you did a great job, actually, of highlighting sort of our thought process and how you'll go through this. And as you described, we're learning as well. But the transfer students, the thing is we have the students who are off track last year, right? And that's kind of a little bit of a regression analysis, I guess. And so one of the things we thought of is, how do we look systemically, right? And then eventually, like you said, could we look at kids and say, is this a risk factor across the board? And the one thing that, again, I want to be careful of is that most of the kids in these demographic groups, subgroups that you talked about, are on track. And so that's where it gets a little bit convoluted. We do, just so you know, have a process at our school where every marking period, well, not every marking period, but quarterly and then some midterms and semesterly, we review all students who get an F or have an attendance, threshold. So we have an early warning system that all those students get reviewed individually, regardless of this. So one of the things I think when we did the analysis and as we try to go through this process and learn this process was actually something, the transfer student was actually something that was illuminating. That we sat back and said, wow, have we really talked about this? Right, and that's where we said, wow, and then the overlap, as Dr. Everly just said, is evident. And so that's sort of where our process was, is truthfully, one of the things is, if we can't answer to you right now, these are exactly the transfer processes we have, then maybe, we have a special ed department that does a great job and gets that early warning system data as well. We have a student services department that does a great job, gets that early warning system data as well. Has anybody intentionally been looking at transfer students in this manner? And at that moment, we were like, huh. And that's where I feel like this process was good. Right, I've been doing data here for a long time, I've been doing MTSS for a long time. This was a way that we really collaborated and worked with our teams and our district leadership to look at this data systemically and then also understand what are our current practices. And so I think for me, why did we start with transfer students? I think that was why. And the overlap.
I appreciate that background, and I'm in no way trying to be challenging because I realize this is a super complicated thing. And it's super important work, and in some ways it's a new frontier. And I understand the logic of you found a subgroup that perhaps that's where you can first lock onto and try to address. And the last thing I'll say is, part of the reason I'm asking about even the individual students among the set of 62 is just what Tim alluded to earlier, which is the notion of how fast can we identify the right strategies and tactics, and then how fast can we get them implemented? And if we can get them implemented early in the fall of this coming school year, I think that would be really good.
I'll add, since you brought that up right now, one of the conversations we've had, which is implicit, I think, in what you shared, is that schools make mistakes when they see something they identify as a problem and they say, here's a Band-Aid, let's roll this thing out. Which is why I really appreciated this, and actually it's been part of a lot of other conversations we have. We really need to take, and that's the phase you're in right now, taking stock of what's going on in the school right now. It may not be across the board systemically, but we may find 5-6 counselors have this practice in place that really seems to be humming. And we don't want to put a quick fix on top of that without understanding, existing practices. So that's the reason for the frustrating patience that exists with some of this. But the call to get something for meaningful in place for next year's kids in this building is a part of why we're doing the work. So very fair point.
Other questions? Okay. I thank you very much.
Onwards.
Yeah. Okay, that completes our discussion items. We have board governance. I would say, really, three comments that I would share and then allow others to participate. First, the atlas that's in the agenda is a moving and continuingly refined document. And so appreciate the efforts as we continue to, get that tuned in and live. So that's number one. Number two is that we are going to be doing orientation for incoming board members. And that document is exactly what we will be using to tell them about the work of the board and what's critical, so we will be able to use that and allow them to step in, hopefully, with a much clearer vision and to be able to start running, which I know that was the intent from the get-go, and I can see that materializing, and I'm looking forward to, at least seeing and passing it on to the new board members. And 3, what was my third one? Oh God, I should have written them down. Oh, no, we're having on Monday, as part of our goals, which is in part of the governance, is this community session talking about finance. So I think those are all actions that have come out of the work that we've done in this area. So it really, I thank my co-board members for, their participation, their input, and really putting all this stuff together. It will pay dividends as a board. Other comments on governance? Okay. On our roles with committees, liaison roles, anything that individuals would like to share? There are a few posted communications, so beyond that, anything to share?
I have tech issues, so we've rescheduled.
Fred?
Yeah, on Tuesday, there was a facilities committee meeting. Basically, the gist of the meeting was focused on project 3 and where we're at with it. GM has been moving forward with the programming phase that we approved. And expects to come back to the board in June. With a report that's going to outline needs assessment, I believe. In that vein, what they've done to date, they sent out a survey to students and faculty. They've gotten substantial response, and next step then is to do some small focus groups with different the different areas that would be affected, would have needs, and talk with them. This is very similar, it seems to me, is the process that the original Imagine process followed, was doing the surveys, having focus groups to develop the needs. So we can expect something back from them, at the I think it's the June 12th board meeting.
Excellent, thank you.
I have a few things to report on. So we had our first working group meeting with the Tri Board and the Collaboration for Early Childhood Education. The purpose of this assembling this group, which is representatives from each of the 3 agencies, and is to look at the current contract and look at ways that it is that things have changed and how we should look at amending contract beyond just the fiscal language that is therein, and really looking at how we can more meaningfully formalize the some of the norms that are already in action at the different agency levels in helping the CDC carry out their mission, and how we can really look at the continuum a little more clearly and operationalize the actions and activities at each level. So that's exciting. We're going to have our next meeting in June, I believe. We did have our final culture, climate and behavior meeting. It was mostly a reflective circle exercise with participants to really look back on the last 10 years at OPRF and really to identify ways that the school's culture has meaningfully changed the work that we've been doing around restorative practice. And then then Wednesday, last Wednesday was I think there's still an informal community council meeting, so the second to last community.
Last
council meeting.
Thursday.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's still one, but it's offsite, I believe, right?
That's correct, there's one in May.
Yeah, anyway, Dean Benji Marcial, is that correct? And Ginger Bencola presented on OPRF's substance abuse prevention and intervention work. And that was the nature of the entire meeting.
Thank you. Kim?
Urban Forest.
To the River Forest Community Co-Lab met last night, and I sent you guys a email earlier today. There are a couple of potential board outreach community engagement opportunities. The River Forest Township is suggesting that we have an opportunity to have a booth in the booth that we use at Dana Village. At the end of the River Forest Memorial Day Parade, it ends in Keystone. All the people who marched, all the families are in Keystone. There's free hot dogs, free soda, whatever. They're inviting, it's kind of the new thing that the township, who sponsors the parade, is organizing. They're inviting organizations to have booths there. So that is something for us to consider. Just a lot of families that are there, so it'd be an opportunity to reach those families. There are some other opportunities during the summer that I have in my email, but the other opportunity that I think we should give some serious thought to is similarly having a booth presence at the Lemonade fundraiser on September 11th. That is, I think it's been going on for 20 years or almost since 9/11. So that is on a block of Bonnie Gray in River Forest. It is like the biggest party in River Forest every year. Tons of kids, tons of families, and the River Forest Township Supervisor also lives on that block and one of the organizers of Lemonade. So he similarly is trying to encourage businesses, public entities, nonprofits to have booths. So trying to just build Lemonade out even bigger and stronger. Again, great opportunity for us to reach a lot of families in one place. So it's something that we can talk about.
Tim, do you want convocation, scholarship thing?
Oh, right. Next Wednesday is the convocation and scholarship award winners will be.
Any board members have not let, if any board members are going to attend, please make sure you let Dr. Huron's office know that as well, or let me know tonight before we leave.
The only comment I have on this is for Community Finance Committee. With the swearing in of Kathleen Odell, there will be a vacancy on the CFC.
We actually have a second vacancy as well.
And we'll have a second, so there will be a need to,
You'll have a lot of free time.
no. Although I will be public, I would hope I'm going to ask to be on the sustainability committee if that would, however that process is, so.
If you can be so kind as to submit your credentials, we'll renew them.
Application process. Process.
You gotta speak fluent Polish or something, what do you got this, Jenny? No, okay, very good. With that said, I think we have any future agenda items. This is your chance, so you. And does anyone have any future agenda items?
I'll just say, since I'm not going to be able to make the May first board meeting, this is my last board meeting, and it's just been, I mean, the hardest volunteer job I've ever signed up for, but also one of the most rewarding, and it's just been a pleasure and privilege. I'm sorry all the administrators are gone. So I would have wanted to thank them too, so please pass along.
I will
Yeah.
definitely do.
So it's been terrific, and I'm very tired. So thank you all who are continuing on, and please, I'm not signing up for any committees anytime soon, but please consider me a resource, you'll know how to reach me, right? So, thanks.
No, I was gonna write an article about it.
Talking. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, any new business? Okay, then I move to adjourn.
Second. Oh.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.
That's a little moment right there.
Yeah, I got